Welcome back. So, at the start of the season, if I was asked about Pettersson, my answer would be, he'll stick around. He'll stick around, he'll sign a long term deal, they'll figure it out. My opinion on that has shifted. It has absolutely shifted. I'm at this point where I'm like, 50-50. Maybe they trade him. Maybe they do. And we have a trade deadline coming up in 11 days. A very quiet trade deadline to this point. A shockingly quiet trade deadline, although, in all honesty, it makes some sense. So many teams are up against the cap. It does make it more of a challenge for the Vancouver Canucks in the event that they decide to trade Pettersson. I feel like they might be able to get more for Pettersson now at the trade deadline than they might in the offseason, but still, we'll see. So his cap hit currently $7.35 million, which, considering the kind of package they might be looking for, shouldn't be a problem for the team acquiring him because they're going to be moving money out at the same time. Now, he's 1 year away from UFA status. So, as a restricted free agent this summer, he could just sign a 1 year extension with the Canucks and walk himself to free agency, which the Canucks can't afford. They can't afford to lose Pettersson for nothing. As a Canuck fan that remembers when they were these, Cliff Ronning, Jeff Courtnall, various others just walked away for nothing, it sucks. It's a terrible feeling. It really, really sucks. So, I'd rather see them get something back. Now, when we look at what the Calgary Flames got for Matthew Tkachuk, we know that they lost the Matthew Tkachuk deal, but when we look at what they got Huberdeau, so they got a forward that they felt could. It feels like Huberdeau more replaced Gaudreau than replaced Tkachuk, right? They got Uyghur on the blue line. Uyghur's been very good on the blue line for them. And the Vancouver Canucks, I would think, would be fine with getting a forward and a defenseman for Pettersson. And then you've got Cole Schwint, prospect, and a 2025 first, which is now all embroiled in the Sean Monahan trade and all of that. So a first round pick did go the other way. And, if Vancouver could get a forward, a defenseman, and a first round draft pick for Pettersson, I think most Canuck fans would probably be okay with that. I mean, obviously, it would depend on who the players were, but I think most Canuck fans are understanding of the fact that you can't lose the player for nothing. So when you look at the stats over the last few years, 2021, 2022, he played 80 games, 32 goals, 36 assists, 68 points. There was talk that year of whether or not he was 100%. The following season, there was no concern of that at all. Again, he plays 80 games, 39 goals, 63 assists, 102 points. This year so far, 60 games, 29 goals, 45 assists, 74 points. He's slowed down lately. I do wonder if maybe part of it is this situation because, like, for a player, they can go out and play and they can say, well, it's not bothering me. And maybe it doesn't. But at some point in time, especially once the trade talks start to get more and more intense, you're going to be getting asked questions about it. It might start to affect your game just that little bit. So when we look at the Vancouver Canucks where they're at right now, you've got JT Miller's clearly the focal point up front. 29 goals, 50 assists, 79 points. All of a sudden, the decision to keep JT Miller looks all right because now we're looking at maybe Miller's going to go. Horvat went last year. Kuzmenko gets traded this year as well. Quinn Hughes, 12 goals, 58 assists, 70 points. Brock Besser, 33 goals, 27 assists, 60 points. Good thing they didn't trade Besser as well. Remember all those Besser for Dumba trade talks? They should just trade him for Dumba. Man, can you imagine? Besser would be scoring right now. He'd be playing with guys like Boldy and Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek. He'd be scoring 30 goals there, I have no doubt. And Matt Dumba would be the return for the Canucks. I don't think fans would be okay with that right now. Hronek, 5 goals, 38 assists, 43 points. His offense has slowed down from where it was at the start of the year, but whose doesn't? Really, in all honesty, usually scoring should come down as the year goes along. And Demko, 31, 12, and 11 record, or 31, 12, and 1 record with a 917 save percentage. So Demko is obviously the starter in net. Long term, you've got to keep him around. Miller's already signed long term. Hughes is not coming up soon. I think Besser's up next summer. And Hronek is due for a contract this summer. He's a restricted free agent. Hronek's not going to be a cheap contract either. So for Canuck fans, like, oh, I love Hronek. Well, if you sign Hronek and you sign Pettersson, it could get a little dicey. So the report that's out there, and has gathered a lot of steam over the last few days, is that Patterson was reportedly offered an 8-year extension by the Vancouver Canucks worth $96 million, or $12 million per year. So the idea that well, did he reject it? No, he didn't reject it. He didn't accept it. He just decided to go on about his season. But if he wanted to stick around long term, I would think $12 million a year would probably be enough to get it done. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to cost more than $12 million for the Canucks or any other team to sign him, just that he didn't sign that contract that was offered, and the Canucks understood that's what the market value was going to be for Pettersson. And so for Pettersson, I have no doubt that he's going to be at least above 10, probably above 11 million, which is where you're getting into some kind of crazy money. So for older fans, the answer or the question is going to be, well, wait a minute, he hasn't won a Stanley Cup. He hasn't done much in the playoffs. They haven't been in the playoffs since 2020. But others will understand. He's 25 years of age. He's in his prime. This is where a guy gets paid, and his talent level is very, very high. This is one of the best players the Canucks have ever drafted, so makes some sense that for Vancouver, you would want to pay him what you feel he's worth and not lowball him in negotiations, which clearly they haven't. And I applaud them for that, because there are times where a GM will come in with an offer. We hear it as fans, as media, and we'll say, that seems really low. Well, that's how negotiations start. You start low. And it might mean they're willing to go above $12 million a year in order to keep him around. So it is still possible that they circle back, that he circles back maybe and says, you know what, I'll sign on long term. But the Canucks cannot afford to walk him to free agency. And not only that, but they can't afford to be in a position where, let's say this summer, they say, all right, we're going to keep Pettersson around. Things have gone really well. Let's just say the Canucks go to, say, the conference final this year. And they go, you know what, we're going to keep Pettersson. Do they really want to walk him to free agency or face a situation where he's a pending UFA next year and it becomes a distraction for everybody? And then they have to trade him at the deadline because they don't want to lose him for nothing. Like it really is a situation where the best time to trade him would sadly be now. And I say sadly because the Canucks are having the best season that they've had since, I would say, 2011, 2012. Best season since then. I'm not going to go with 2010, 2011 as of yet, because I think that team was better than this team. If you look at the roster and just the overall star power of that team, I would put it ahead of this team, but they're close. They're very, very close. And so the Vancouver Canucks are in this spot now where they may have to trade a core guy at the trade deadline. Is that going to mess up team chemistry? And on some level, does the fact the Canucks have had a recent losing streak, does that maybe make it a little bit easier to move Pettersson? Because you can say, well, things aren't going that great right now. We could use a shakeup. Of course, a shakeup doesn't normally involve moving your first line center. Doesn't normally involve moving a top guy. Of course, there's going to be rumors. So it's Jim Rutherford that's doing the trading. So don't be surprised when people go, Pittsburgh. That's where, because he will call. I'm sure he talks to Pittsburgh a lot, but the reality is that I would think that they put Pettersson's name out there, or at the very least, teams start calling, and you go with the best offer that you get. And it could really fire up the trade deadline, because let's be honest, the trade deadline has been very, very quiet, and there's no really big names that are out there. So if the Canucks were to say, you know what, we're going to have to trade Pettersson now, that makes him easily the biggest piece available on the block at trade deadline, and means maybe they can get more than what Calgary got for Tkachuk. Maybe you can get a couple of first round picks. Maybe you can get a roster player who can do, and I don't know, you don't even know how to say could do what Pettersson does, but a top six, let's say a top two center, go that way, top two center and a couple of first round draft picks. I don't know. Do Canucks fans take that? Like, one of the reasons why I thought the Lindholm trade was smart is because Lindholm can play down the middle. He can play various spots when you need him. And in the event that Pettersson leaves, then you've got Lindholm that you can keep. You've got Lindholm that you can talk to and get an extension done with, potentially, right? So that's kind of how I see it, is that's covered just in case Pettersson leaves. And so far with Lindholm, Vancouver's been good. He's not Pettersson good, but I think they know that. And I don't think fans expect that of Lindholm either. I don't think the expectation is, okay, now you're the new Pettersson, dazzle us. So it will be interesting to see what the Canucks do between now and March the 8th. I get the feeling that he's going to get moved. I mean, I know I'm saying I'm 50-50, but I just get the feeling it's going to end up happening. If he's going to stick around, we'll get the extension done. If he's not going to stick around, we'll know, because I don't think there'll be an extension done. And again, you can't afford to lose the player for nothing. That's a non-starter. And so for Vancouver, they're in this position right now where this would be so much easier if the Canucks were where they were expected to be this year, which is maybe, marginal towards playoffs, but probably not a playoff team. Then it's way easier to sell the fan base on the idea of trading Pettersson. Right now, with the team at the top of the standings, it's a tough sell. So it'll be interesting to see if they decide to move him, what they can get back. So this is where you let it rip. Let it rip. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Where do you think Pettersson ends up if the Canucks do make a trade? Or do you think they sign him long term? Because those are your choices. Either they sign him long term, he sits down and he signs that contract, or I think he's probably on his way out. And if he goes, I'll still wear my Pettersson jerseys. I don't have ill will towards players who don't want to play for a team I cheer for, because I think that's freedom. They want to do that. That's fine. I don't get mad about it. I only get mad about it if they throw like the rest of the team under the bus, or they whine after they leave about how terrible Vancouver was. That's when I'm like, all right, that's enough. And when Horvat said he enjoyed Long Island and it's better, that was just for the Long Island fans. It wasn't necessarily an insult towards Vancouver fans. I thought that was really overblown, and I wouldn't expect anything like that from Pettersson. Pettersson's pretty soft spoken, so I wouldn't expect any negativity from him towards Vancouver. And if he's decided, you know what, this isn't where I want to be long term, as I've said the whole way through, Canuck fans got upset when he said he wanted a chance to win, but doesn't everybody want a chance to win? Don't you want people playing for your team who want to win a championship rather than just go out there and make money and party and that's it? They're not really worried about the winning. So whoever gets Patterson, if he gets traded, gets a real good player. And I do hope that he wins the Stanley Cup at some point in his career. If it's not in Vancouver, again, I've seen that happen where players leave Vancouver or, Boston, and they win a Stanley Cup elsewhere, and I'm okay with that too. But let me know your thoughts. You gonna boo him if he ends up wanting to go? Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event that you haven't done so already. And hey, thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.